Okay, yes it is. It's time for the review of quiz number 2, worksheet 16A and B. Solve the inequality, graph the solution, and write the solution in interval notation. First step on here would be to add 2x to both sides, giving us 5 times x plus 2 is less than 17. Subtract 2 from both sides, 5 times x is less than 15. Divide by 5, x would be less than 3. When x is less than 3, that means that you go to 3 on the number line. You might want to label to the left of it, 4 to the right. It does not include the 3, and it means everything smaller than 3, so it would be pointing towards the left. Shade your arrow up to the 3. The interval is then from the left to the right. You always want to write it left to right. If you don't, it's going to be points off. So it's from negative infinity up to the 3, and it doesn't include either of those because you can't include infinity, and 3 was not part of the deal. It said less than but not equal to. Number 2 is an absolute value equation. And if you have an absolute value equation, it should have both 2 solutions most of the time. So negative x plus 3 is equal to 6. Subtract or negative x plus 3 is equal to negative 6. Never ever change what's inside the absolute value bars. Subtract 3 from both sides and change the sign, or divide by negative 1, multiply by negative 1, however you look at it. X is negative 3 is one of your solutions. Subtracting 3 on the other piece is x, negative x, or opposite of x equals negative 9. Change the signs, or divide by negative 1 gives you positive 9. So you have 2 solutions, negative 3 and 9. There's a star by this one in that you want to make sure you isolate the absolute value first. So you need to subtract, bless you, 8 from both sides, giving you the absolute value of 2 times x minus 7 is equal to 9. Now we will write the 2 equations that we need to solve. 2x minus 7 is 9, or 2x minus 7 equals negative 9. Adding 7 to both sides gives me 16, and dividing by 2, I get one solution of 8. The other, you would add 7 and get negative 2, divide by 2 and get negative 1. You are supposed to be checking this. It was already assigned. Solve by showing all work, graph the solution, and state the solution in interval notation. This is an inequality with an absolute value in it. We need to write 2 separate inequalities to solve. First one is just drop the absolute value inequality. Since it says greater than, we've talked about the fact that that means or. So, or x plus 3. When you change the sign of 7 to negative 7, you also flip the symbol. X plus 3 would be less than negative 7. Subtract 3 from both sides gives you x is greater than 4, or for the other one, x is less than negative 10. So, since x is less than negative 10, it's from negative 10 on down, not including the negative 10. And it's also greater than 4, so it'd have to be from 4 on up, not including the 4. In interval notation, that would be from negative infinity up to negative 10, non-inclusive, so soft brackets on both, union with the other piece, which is 4 to infinity. Okay. Number 5 is an and, because it has less than, and the absolute value is on the left. Okay. Dropping the absolute value bars, giving us the first equation, everything just dropping the bars, the same. Then the other equation, negative 4 times x plus 12x, change the sign of 6 to negative 6, flip the symbol. Subtracting 12 from both sides would give us negative 4 times x is less than or equal to negative 6. And the other one, negative, well, I don't know why I'm doing this one separately. I'll finish this one off. If I divide by a negative, I need to switch the symbol and sign. So I am flipping the inequality symbol, and then negative 6 divided by negative 4 would be positive 6/4, which I need to change to 3/2, reduced form. The other inequality, if you subtract 6, negative 4 times x is greater than or equal to negative 18. You would divide by negative 4, flipping the sign and changing a negative over a negative to a positive 18/4, reducing then to 9 halves. 3 halves is 1.5. So that would be between 1 and 2. And I'm just going to have 3, 4, 5. 9 halves is 4.5. So I'm going to be going between 3, 4, 5. I don't know why I just changed the color. But anyway, 1.5 would be about here, and it includes it. So that would be a solid bracket. It's an and, so it's between two numbers. And it's less than 4.5, so that'd be between here. And shaded in between. To write the interval notation, you may use the fractions, 3 halves, close hard bracket, comma, 9 halves, hard bracket. I prefer to see the fractions instead of decimals. All right, number 6, explain the first step in solving this inequality. You need to multiply by y. Okay, you multiply by 4 to isolate the absolute value. And you can abbreviate absolute value ABS. That's actually how it is on your calculator catalog. My pen got stuck. Oh, also lost my pen. Okay. And that's explaining it. Number 6, state the domain and the range, then determine whether it's a function or not. Well, I have a little dot there that isn't really on your picture. Domain has to do with what values of x the function covers. So that's a horizontal coverage. So if you're going from this point, the leftmost point would be at -5, the rightmost point would be at +5. So the domain is going from -5 to 5. The range is how much of the y-axis is it covering, the vertical axis. The lowest most point is actually only at 2, and the highest is at 6. So it's only from 2 to 6 for the range, and it includes those. It is a function because it passes the vertical line test. And it's also 1-to-1 because it passes the horizontal line test. Any questions about that? Domain, range, function, 1-to-1 function. Okay. Number 8. Multiply by the LCD. Do not try to work with the fractions. Okay, this would be a lot better to clear out the fractions. So I'm going to multiply by the LCD, which would be 12. 2 times 6 is 12. 12 divided by 4 goes evenly, and so does 3 divided into 12 evenly. That is the lowest common multiple, or else lowest common denominator. All right, so if I'm just going to write it out. Multiply by 12 on each piece, so I'm going to write it out the whole way. You don't have to, but I think some people are still a little bit rusty on this. Then each time you look, you want to say, how much does the denominator go into 12? Well, 4 goes into 12 3 times. 3 times 3x would be 9x. 3 goes into 12 4 times. I have minus 4 times 2, 8. 2 goes into 12 6 times. 6 times 5 would be 30. 6 goes into 12 twice. 2 times 5x would be 10x. Need to get my x's all on one side, so I'm going to subtract 9x and subtract 30. So that would be -38 for our solution. It's a beautiful thing to get those fractions out of there. Okay, if this was a big absolute value, you would want to isolate the absolute value first. This is a fraction. You need to isolate that fraction first. So the step first is to add 8. All right, so add 8 first. This would be -3 times x plus 7 over -3 equals -2. So we're adding 8 to both sides first. Next, we would multiply by -3 on both sides. That would give us +6. Negative 3 times x plus 7 equals positive 6. What I did was multiply both sides by negative 3. Subtract 7 from both sides, you get negative 1. Divide by negative 3, that'd be positive 1/3. Okay? Any questions on that? Like I told you, this one will again be a problem for some people. They'll forget. Don't multiply by negative 3 first. If a variable is more than there's more than one variable, you must either combine or factor, and you can only combine if they're like terms. All right, so I see x in two places. I'm just going to think of this as a fraction on the right. If I want to solve for x, I have to do I'm going to do cross products to get the x out of the denominator, or you could think of it as multiplying by x on both sides. What's going to give us is 3 times y plus 8 is equal to 8x. I need to now subtract x from both sides, which would give me 3 times y equals 7x. And then to get x alone, I'll divide by 7. So 3y over 7 is what x equals. In number 11, I got to get my p's together because I'm solving for p. So I'm going to subtract 2pr from both sides. All right, now I got to factor out a p because it's attached to those two pieces. I can't combine these because they're not like terms. One of them has an r in it, the other one doesn't. So I've got to unmultiply by p, which would give me 4 minus 2p times parentheses 4 minus 2r. Last quiz, this is the most missed type of problem. Dividing by 4 minus 2r would give me p. So negative 8 over 4 minus 2r. Now, your textbook would never leave the answer like this. It would multiply by the top by negative 1, multiply the bottom by negative 1, and then it would actually turn this around. So the book would show 8 divided by 2r minus 4. Follow how I got that? It just looks better. I wouldn't get picky on the quiz, though. I'd like to see that you know to do that. So. All right, number 12. Netflix charges a monthly fee of $7.95 plus $50 per movie download. This is definitely old. Write an equation that describes the relation between downloads D and costs C in dollars, so for a month of service. All right, your cost to have that Netflix then would be $7.95. You don't download the movies anymore, do you? They kind of are, though. You got the box, right? Anyway. All right, so then your 50 cents per download would be 0.50 times D. Like D would equal the number of downloads. Okay. And that is it for that review. So now I'm just going to see what questions you might have. Do you have something on the review? Number 3. Okay. You want to talk about it? Just you were behind a little bit and got, okay.